I will start, I guess. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammad-Ali. I'm a Docker captain and also a Docker community leader in the community of Freiburg, actually. I'm also based in Freiburg, which is a city half the size of Atlanta. And it's in the southwest of Germany, in the corner. And yeah, so this is the, if you can see the photo here, I think it's too small. But this is the meetup that we had exactly last week on Wednesday. And yeah, so we also have 3 Docker captains in Freiburg. So that's this is one of them in here, and the other one is also here. So all of them in this photo. Yeah, and there's 6 hours of time difference between Atlanta and Freiburg, so it's 1 a.m. in Freiburg. So if I'm a bit not sharp, that's because I'm a bit yeah, it's a bit late in here. Okay, great. So I'm going to basically talk about testing in production. And yeah, so to have an overview of all the things that I'm going through, I'm going to talk about the staging environments and telepresence at the end. I am, as I skipped it, I am also a software engineer at Jodel, which is a German company creating social media application similar to Twitter. And yeah, so as I work here, last sprint, I had a task at hand that I had to create a new feature, making the polls that we have, they're votable after their expiration in some specific cases. And then, so as I usually do it, I started coding, I implemented the feature, added some tests, pushed it to the GitHub repo that we have. The CI picked it up, ran the test. My colleague reviewed the PR and said, yeah, all good, looks good to me. And then, yeah, I deployed it. And then the client engineers that we have tested it with their clients, with their Android and iOS application, and said, yeah, this is not working, basically. Yeah, the requests are timed out for some reason that I don't know. And yeah, so this is basically me testing in production on Monday this week. And yeah, this is something I would like to say, yeah, is not really a good practice. And something I should have done was to use a staging environment, which is similar to the Kubernetes cluster that we have in production. We have another Kubernetes cluster, which is not receiving live traffic from real users, but we can deploy software, and the QA engineers and client engineers can really test their application against it. So if I had used the staging environment that we have, this is how it would have looked like. I still would have coded the change, push it to the GitHub repo that we have. The CI would pick it up, build the Docker image, push it to some registry like GitHub Docker registry or JFrog. And then I would have deployed it to the staging environment, and then the QA or the client engineers could have tested it, which is already a lot better than testing in production, because then we don't push and deploy faulty code to production. But then the client would have said, okay, this code that you deployed here is not working. You have to do some changes here. If I wanted to do some changes, then I had to go through the whole cycle again. Code it, just push it, the Docker build would run again on the CI pipeline that we have, push it to the registry, and then I had to deploy it again to the staging environment. This is where telepresence comes in play, basically. To give you an idea of how this works is that I want my local machine to have a presence in the Kubernetes cluster, in this case of the staging environment that we have, without really being there. So this is like me now talking to you without being there. So I have kind of a telepresence there. And so if you are the Kubernetes cluster of our staging environment, this is how telepresence works. I want to replace one of the services in the cluster. For example, let's say Ari is sitting there and someone comes and asks a question, and I answer in his stead. And this is basically how this works. And if we, so this is in technical terms, I run the code on my local machine, for example, through Docker Compose, assign it to a specific port, and then Telepresence basically redirects the traffic from the Kubernetes cluster in this Kubernetes in the remote place. They redirect this traffic to my local machine, and then I can basically test my local version of the application on the staging environment that I have. And yeah, so if I do that, this is how the cycle of feedback would look like. I code it, it runs on my machine using Docker Compose Watch, for example. I don't even have to run the Docker Compose again, and then it's already there on the Kubernetes cluster, and the client engineers can test it. The way it works is that I have to install Telepresence locally on my machine. Telepresence basically installs an agent on the Kubernetes cluster. For example, now by doing that, we send someone there to your room to basically intercept questions to Ari, basically. And when I say Telepresence connect, it basically connects my local machine to this Kubernetes cluster, which is like this Zoom call that we have currently. This is basically the setup. You just need to install the command line interface, and you can connect to your cluster using this command. And then I can start intercepting a service in this cluster by this command. And I can say, okay, this is my local port. You have to redirect all this traffic that goes to the service that I have called my app in this cluster to my local machine. And then there is another flag here that says intercept all the headers. So basically all the traffic, all the requests that go to this service are intercepted and redirected to my local machine. This is Telepresence in a nutshell, and I have written a blog post on it. This is my blog post and blog URL. You can so this is the title of the post as well. This is the second one on our blog. You can read it through. It describes how to install Telepresence on a local Docker desktop Kubernetes cluster, and then how to test it with two different versions of your application. Okay, so any questions so far? Yeah, okay, so I will go through a bit more about Telepresence. It's an open source CNCF project. You can use it. You don't have to register anywhere. You don't have to create an account. You can create an account. There is some place called Ambassador Cloud, which is created by Ambassador Lab. It's the same company that is contributing to Telepresence. By creating an account, if you want to, so also there are two types of intercept. This is why we have this header flag in here. You can say, I want to have a specific header setting that, and let Telepresence know that it should only redirect the request with that header. And if you use this kind of interception, then using the Ambassador Cloud would then have this benefit that you can then create an URL there and then give that URL to your customers, and this URL will set this header automatically, but you can also do it manually. And yeah, so basically we have global and personal interception. So you can have only one staging environment and have different personal interceptions, and basically each one of these calls go to a different local machine. So you can test at the same time with your colleague, you can test in the same staging environment. Yeah, so that's basically it. This was an introduction to what Telepresence is and how it will try to solve the problems in testing, and also shortening, accelerating the testing and deploying on Kubernetes clusters. Yeah, so that was it. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I have a question. The container that runs on your machine, does that show up as a normal, manageable entity within, you know, what if does it show up in the cluster as part of a pod? Can you kill it, log into it?
Yeah, so basically on the Kubernetes cluster, there is an agent of Telepresence, and on your local machine, you can run your application anyhow you want. You can run it natively on your host system. You don't have to use Docker, for example. You can run it in Docker Compose. You can run it even, I don't know, on a local Kubernetes cluster. It just the Telepresence only redirects all this traffic to your local port, however this port is served. And yeah, so basically you can stop it by using the same CLI command that's similar to this one. You can disconnect your connection basically, or you can stop intercepting the calls basically.
Yeah, I'm going to show that here.
Oh.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Anybody else? Going once? Going twice?
Mohammed, thank you so much again for taking the time to share with us. I like your hat. Did you join Red Hat, or is this is this a?
Yeah, it's a Red Hat basically. Yeah, I got it at KubeCon.
Okay, great. Yeah. Very cool. It is very nice. We have. I went to the Red Hat office here in Atlanta, which, by the way, still has JBoss on the parking tickets.
Nice.
After all these years, because that's where that's of course was here originally. But I saw the same beautiful hat hanging up there. Before you go, give us. You want to share just a little bit about your? You became a Docker captain. For those who don't know what that means and what's involved with that, could you just share a little bit about how you became a Docker captain and what that means from a credential standpoint?
Mm-hmm. I guess the main. Okay, so how I became a Docker captain was that I started blogging mainly, and I first became a Docker community leader, which was I think 2-3 years ago, and I started this community in Freiburg that wasn't there before. So in the beginning I was hosting some meetups in the community of Zurich, Switzerland, which was the closest existing community to me. And then I started blogging, and giving like talks in different meetup groups, and then after some time, yeah, I got noticed by Docker basically, and yeah, so earlier this year I asked Eva, which is in charge of the Docker Captain program, and basically applied for a captain title, and then yeah, so it worked out, and then yeah, I became a captain. And the main benefit, I guess, would be that it's recognition basically. So yeah, so now I get accepted more easily, I guess, if I want to speak somewhere, because then yeah, this is kind of a recognition.
Great. Well, that's really great. Thank you for sharing. Everyone, let's give him a big hand.